Hey guys, welcome back to Home Build, and in this episode we are finally getting onto the ECU and trying to program it, and I've never done that before, so it's going to be interesting. Alright, it's a bit difficult to film down in here, but there's the my Link ECU is mounted down here, just at the sort of the front of where the back seats would normally be. I'm just going to connect up my wires now, my two loom plugs. I still have to actually wire up the wideband plugs, but I'm not overly concerned about them right at this moment. I just want to get the rest of it up and ready to run. So I'm going to get also my communication cable. So there's a USB cable that goes from the Link ECU to my PC. So let's plug it in and see if we can actually get a signal. Okay, so I knew this wasn't going to be easy, and basically I've chucked a couple of fuses. I've just got a couple of 5 amp fuses top and bottom on this this fuse panel here that I used. That basically runs the power through to my relays over here, and as soon as I turn the power on, it's blowing the middle fuse. So I obviously have done some dodgy wiring in here, and it's grounding out that circuit somewhere. So first thing I have to do is, before I can start playing with computers, is get this thing to be reliable, and that means I need to start tracking down the short in this circuit. Okay, so after some diagnosis, I've worked out that I do have, it seems like I do have a short on the power side of my top row of core packs. So I'm going to have to go through and fault find that a little bit later. But for the time being, let's get back onto the ECU, because I have had some movement there and worked out a couple of things that I didn't do, which does not surprise me. Okay, so as you might have seen earlier, I couldn't actually get the ECU connected to the laptop. I had it all plugged in, and there was no connection. I was sort of going backwards and forwards for a while. Thankfully, Link actually has a forum that I posted up a question on, and they have their tech guys who are monitoring it constantly. I got an email, I got a reply back on the forum basically straight away with some suggestions, and one of the things that I soon realized is that I don't actually have the ground connected to the ECU itself. There is nothing connected, so it's not getting any ground. It's not turning on. So all right, so that's what I'm going to tackle now. Is I'm going to connect up these black ground wires straight to a ground, make a nice grounding point, and then hopefully I should be able to plug the ECU in and give it another try. All right, it's time to try this again. So I just need to connect up my PC back to the ECU and crank it up and see if it works. Hey! So this time I actually got a little green connections connected online. So yeah, just giving a ground to the ECU is probably not a bad idea. Okay, so I apologise I haven't got a good screen capture set up for this, but this is basically the Link ECU software that's pretty straightforward. For example, we've got all of our analog inputs, and I've already gone through. It was actually quite simple because I knew that there's the first 3 of the temp sensors. I know that I've got my surface temp, my inlet air temp, and my oil temp sensors, and I just went through and I just clicked on one of the files. It came up with this sort of thing here, and brings up an option here where you've got coolant temp, inlet temp, fuel temp, whatever type of temperature sensor it is. You just click on that type of sensor and it will allocate it. So it's quite simple. So I'm just going through now with my guide. This is what I actually set up when I first wired up the engine. These are the wires that I actually used to connect up to the sensors in the engine. I took note of them, they're all written down in this, and now it's just a matter of going through and just allocating them, and they're already sort of pre-calibrated in the software. I can do some fine-tuning, I believe, later, but for this stage, I'm just going through and just putting whatever's here into the system, allocating what wire does what, and at the moment it's really straightforward. All right, initial calibration of this software is really quite simple. It's just sort of pretty much idiot-proof, just following along what you did previously. It makes it really easy. I set up the limits on the throttle position sensor. There's a setup in the ECU controls. Basically, it just goes through TPS setup, says press the throttle full open, okay, release all the way, okay. That's it. That's really simple. But I'm looking here and I'm getting a fault code, which is, it says fault code 74. It's a 5-volt supply error. So what I'm thinking is I might actually have one of my sensors is wired incorrectly or something's not quite right, and basically it's grounding out one of the 5-volt supply, the sensors. So I have to go through now and see if I can sort that out, work out what is not doing what it's supposed to, and yeah, it's probably my dodgy wiring. All right, so the initial setup I am pretty happy with. I'm actually can contact the computer. I've got some the basic sensors laid out and some of the initial setup done. So I just wanted to confirm that this works and it's there. I need to do a bit more research into how to actually start setting up some basic initial fuel tables and ignition tables and things like that I have no idea about. But I'm going to do some research and get back on that. But before I can get anything running, I still need to go. I need to find the fault in the back. But the thing I'm going to tackle right now is I need to get on and connect up those lambda sensors. So the O2 wideband sensors. I haven't actually connected them up to the inputs into the ECU. So let's do that now. Okay, so now I have the wideband oxygen sensors all wired up into the, it's a C plug that goes into the Thunder ECU. I'm definitely getting quicker at doing this. It's taken me a little while, but I know I'm sort of getting the hang of it, and also sort of planning ahead and using the sort of documentation that Link supplies with the ECU really helps. Now it is time to get back to the back of the car, and I need to really track down what's going on with that igniter circuit and why it keeps blowing fuses. I'm not looking forward to that. Well, I pulled everything apart, I unplugged everything, I tested, and there was nothing going to ground anywhere. So basically the way you can test a circuit, generally when a fuse blows like that, it generally means that that's a circuit where you've got 12-volt power going into it, and somewhere along the line, instead of just going to the core packs like it's supposed to, it was actually grounding out on the body of the car somewhere or something. And I went through, checked, I could not find a ground anywhere. I've connected it up again and there's no issue now. It's not blowing fuses. I did have a 5 amp fuse in there first time. I put in a 20 amp fuse, but I don't think that should make a difference, particularly when I'm not actually asking anything of it at this stage. So it sort of worries me a bit more because it means that I potentially have a intermittent fault, intermittent ground somewhere, so it may raise its ugly head in the future. But for the time being, I've checked everything I can check and it all seems to work. I don't have any sensor fault codes anymore. I managed to recalibrate my throttle position motor. I was getting an error from the throttle motor when I would manually go through the movement. It was reading on the ECU and you could see the sensor reading, but the throttle position sensor, the way it's set up, where it is, basically it reads at maximum, which takes the reading to 0.0 volts at wide open throttle. So it was giving me an error reading of too low. And I just had to reset the values on that to 0 so that it knows that when it's at 0, it's at wide open throttle, it's not an issue. So that is all sorted. So actually, it's actually gone better than I thought. I don't have any sensors that I haven't wired up properly because that was one of my issues. And I don't have, yeah, it looks like so far my wiring actually works. So I don't know how that happened, but it seems to be that if I took my time, I've actually haven't done a too bad a job so far, but it's still early days. Well, I know it's a little bit of a different one today, going through and just working out exactly how to set up the ECU and how the software works and things like that. I'm quite impressed with how this straightforward the Link ECU software is. Going through all the settings are sort of pretty much following a bouncing ball. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Next week I might see how I go getting onto linking up with one of the tech guys in New Zealand, which is where Link's headquarters is, and they can get online with a TeamViewer app, and they can actually go through the software and sort of help set it all up and get it all running. So I might actually do that next week. But that is all I've got time for today. I am very happy with the progress. It's getting there. I mean, there's still a few things before I can actually start it. There's no oil in it. There's a few little bits and pieces, but we're getting there. This was not as big of a drama as I was hoping, and the fact that my sensors are working, I don't have everything seems to be doing the right thing. There's a couple of temperature sensors that are actually reading pretty accurate temperatures, like the air temperature sensor and the surface temperature sensors I've got on there are both reading pretty close to what it should be. So it's good. It's good. I'm happy with the progress. All right, guys. Well, as always, if you want to help out, you can always join us on Patreon and watch the videos a day early. Make sure if you need any parts for your Porsche, make sure you check at PorschePartsByJeff.com first and compare prices there. All right, guys. See you next time.